Uber, Bitcoin, self-driving cars. Combine those three together, and you have the self-owning taxi. A car that is a corporation that owns itself, pays for the car lease, the car insurance, and the gasoline from the revenues it makes, giving passengers a ride, and there's not a single human involved in that matter.
But while crypto is meant to be detached from the global economy and banking system, the effects of the banking crisis could actually be bleeding into this space. Crypto exchange Binance reportedly is struggling to find a bank to hold its customers' cash after the failure of its primary partner, Signature. Institutions may be looking to avoid risk more than ever after SVB's collapse, and the crypto space has had its share of black eyes lately, namely FTX, which released a report from its debtors highlighting what led to its failure, which was summed up by new CEO John Ray as hubris, incompetence, and greed. Here to discuss is CNBC.com tech reporter Mackenzie Sigalos. Welcome back. Okay, so Binance needs a bank pretty quickly, it seems.
Yeah, it definitely does. So it's one of those crypto firms that has been struggling to find a banking partner since the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature and Silvergate, which were very friendly to the industry. But what's interesting is if you look at some of the bigger players, you've got Circle and Coinbase who haven't had a similar struggle. They're still working with leading banks in the country, but Binance has those regulatory concerns.
So why don't they just go to some of the big banks and say, I'd like to put my money? I'm sure a lot of those banks would be delighted to have customer deposits.
But with Binance specifically, it's still facing that lawsuit from the CFTC saying that, they've helped to facilitate nefarious trades. They're perhaps bypassing U.S. regulations. So there's concern about potentially associating with them. And that's just the CFTC. There are concerns that the SEC might have, certain things to say, perhaps the DOJ. There's been reporting along those lines from Reuters. So that's the concern here. And what's actually funny is that
you'd be playing in a messy swimming pool.
Right. And you don't want to get involved. And if anything, you would have thought that it would have been crypto markets failing after, falling rather, after the collapse of these two big banks. But if anything, it's been the exact opposite. You've got Bitcoin and Ether outperforming bank stocks by a mile since March 10th. It's 1 month since the collapse of SVB, and the market has done quite well.
Yeah, and the bulls are loving it.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, right now we have Bitcoin and cryptos pumping. The bulls are out. And I know a lot of you keep asking, have we hit the bottom? And like I told you, the signal is going to be Janet Yellen. We clearly see everything manipulated. We had the Fed come in and pump the market. Now we have yields being pushed down. We have the dollar being pulled back. And we know anytime we go towards a major upgrade, it moves the market up. So, of course, Ethereum is a percentage of the market. So if Ethereum is moving up, we know Bitcoin is moving up, and we know DeFi and the rest of the market is going to be moving up. Guys, all this is controlled by an algorithm. But guys, we have Binance.us on CNBC. But remember, guys, we've heard from CZ on several occasions telling us he has nothing to do with Binance.us. And we see how they link it up, so therefore they can bring the negative news towards CZ. And anytime CZ is brought up, we know on the side we're going to hear about FTX. And we know anytime Bitcoin and crypto is constantly on CNBC, they're pushing a message to the masses. And we see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some other cryptos beating bank stocks. We know DeFi is definitely the new banking. And like I stated, Bitcoin and crypto have definitely not hit a bottom. All this is being manipulated. But the Binance movie is going to give us that signal. And that's the reason why they keep going back to Binance, because that's the one that's going to be able to pull this whole market down while they start building the fourth industrial revolution. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you.
Welcome back. China has declared its military ready to fight after completing 3 days of exercises around Taiwan after the Taiwanese president's meeting with Speaker McCarthy here in the U.S. Our Eunice Yoon is in Beijing with that story and with the U.S. response. Hi, Eunice.
Hey, Kelly. Well, Taiwan has responded tonight to Beijing, saying that it will never relax its efforts to strengthen its combat readiness. Over the past 3 days, the Chinese military has been simulating blockades as well as precision strikes. The state media has reported that the Chinese homegrown aircraft carrier known as the Shandong has also taken part in the war games for the first time. Now, despite the tense drills, many people here are talking about how the action appears to be less aggressive than what Beijing did when former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan last summer. The belief is that Beijing wants to appear stern and tough on Taiwan, while at the same time playing up its role as an international peacemaker. In fact, there were several foreign dignitaries here last week, but the drills took place only after all of them left. Now, the U.S. has said that it's monitoring the situation, but perhaps in a sign of how tense the situation really is, the U.S. has dispatched a destroyer to the South China Sea and in waters that the Chinese claim are near islands, which the Chinese claim as their own. And the Chinese military has accused now the U.S. of what they described as illegally trespassing Chinese waters. And they say that their troops are on high alert. Kelly?
Eunice, we are also struck by these comments from the French President Macron, obviously, who seemed to imply that Europe couldn't win on Ukraine and by extension couldn't win on Taiwan, and that perhaps wouldn't have the willpower to do so in joining the U.S. if it came to that point. I'm curious if that's already being played up there.
Oh, it's definitely being played up here. The state media has been talking very much about how the French and the Chinese have so much in common. There really has been an effort to talk about how important the relationship is with Europe. So it hasn't been lost on the Chinese what Macron has said and his what appears to be an affinity from their perspective to the Chinese.
And guys, even though the Fed is raising rates, they're able to manipulate the market. Why? Because they control the supply and demand. They can manipulate yields. They can manipulate the dollar. They can manipulate gold. And we definitely know they can manipulate Bitcoin and crypto. But we know numbers do not lie. Once those yield rates start to rise again, we know what's going to happen to markets. But we know before that happens, we're going to get that distraction. We know that we hear the drums are beating. We see all the chess pieces being done. Brazil, now France. And we had the French president go over to China, saying that they just can't be United States followers, and then also stated that they should stay independent when it comes to China and the Taiwan fight. So guys, we clearly see the two sides being created on the chessboard. And definitely we know right now the game has already started. And China is winning on purpose. All of this was planned out a long time ago. And we know we have Bitcoin and cryptos doing great. We have stocks doing pretty good. But at the same time, guys, we have America to Babylon fallen and the masses are distracted. We see the banking industry being destroyed right in front of our eyes, and we know why. Because of the new digital transformation. And the NWO knows as long as they keep the masses distracted, they get to build. And we know in the fourth industrial revolution, they want the robots, algorithms, and drones to take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep are going inside the metaverse. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows, when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
If I were king, I would pause the rate hikes. I do think job growth is slowing. And here's an important statistic. In this month of March, labor supply, that's the growth in the labor force, is now growing more quickly than labor demand. Labor demand is in jobs plus the number of unfilled positions. That's the first time that's happened since the teeth of the pandemic shutdown. So what that means, John, is that the unemployment rate, which, as you pointed out, is low, 3.5%, is now going to head north. And then you throw in the moderating inflation, and then you throw in the banking situation. I think that's the recipe for a pause in interest rates.
The flip side of this, the fact that the market is pricing in the second half of the year, not one, but potentially multiple rate cuts. What would it take, even if the Fed stopped pausing at the next meeting or at the meeting after, what would it actually take for the Fed to start cutting?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to cut unless we go into recession. So if we go into recession, which means lost jobs are declining and unemployment's rising very rapidly, I think that's very unlikely that the Fed will start cutting interest rates that quickly. So I think the bar is really very high for them to actually cut rates because, you go back to inflation, even though I'm arguing it's going to moderate, it's going to take a while for that to get back into something that they feel comfortable with, anyone feels comfortable with, closer to their target. And that's not going to happen before the end of the year. That's something that won't happen until this time next year. So I'd be very surprised if they start cutting interest rates, barring a recession. If we go, and that to some degree is what the markets seem to be signaling. Certainly the bond market, the treasury market is signaling that the investors think we're going into an economic downturn before the end of the year.
Going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box, provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.